So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? This is your brother Shabazz. We're gonna wait a couple of seconds. We'll wait a little bit to see if anybody gonna join us today. But this is your brother Shabazz. This is the proper perspective. What we gonna do today? We still talking about some FBA stuff. There was a few technical difficulties last week, so I figure we'll just pick back up where we left off. Hopefully y'all can hear me now. I got the mic situated. So what we gonna do? I'm just pretty much gonna start off right where I ended. During the last episode, we were talking about hate from the FBA brigade. And the brother that we were looking at, the video we were looking at, one of the things that he said was, nobody got mad until we changed the name. And one of the things that this is what I closed with last week. So I'll start there and then we're going to move forward. It's nobody has a problem with the name itself. The problem is with everything that comes attached to the name. People have a problem with what gets generated by the folk who use the name. So if you have an issue with the reputation that is attached to FBA moniker, then you have an issue with your own selves. Because it is the FBA group, it is the people who wave the flags, it is the people who follow Tariq Nasheed, it is the people who create their FBA videos, who spew forth the hate. So trying to make it seem as though, oh no, they only mad because we changed the name. No, nobody cares if you change the name. Most people still haven't changed the name. Most people are not going to agree to change the name. But again, people have a problem with what gets attached, the exclusion, the CIA accusations lobbed at anyone who doesn't fall in line. Case in point, because of the conversation we're having, because of the video that we're reviewing today. We're reviewing a video of an FBA advocate who says, I'm canceling. We all need to cancel this particular person because this particular person dared utter one critique of the leader that they swear is not the leader. You're not the leader, but we can't suffer nobody saying anything wrong about this guy. See, again, the hate didn't arrive with I should say it this way. The hate came lock, stock, and barrel with the new name. That's why people have a problem. Now, as I was doing, I'm going to show you the clip. Let me see, let me get that, get share screen going. Now, if you happen to be watching on Instagram or other social media other than YouTube, it behooves you to jump on over here if you want to see everything that's going on the screen. But what we're going to do is pull up this video. That is not the right one. There we go. That's the video. I don't know how that happened. Share screen. There we go. So here is the video we're going to be reviewing. And let me pull up this. So again, we're picking up from where we left off last week. So let me get to this new clip, this new section. And so what we're talking about right now is the name itself. Now, y'all know that the name African American has been with us for a while. Let me see. Okay, so we do got some people We got a few people in the house, in the room, in the YouTube chat room, and it looks like there's some people joining on TikTok. Now I'm gonna be honest with you, I have a hard time keeping track of the TikTok because the screen is so small. But okay, so here's what we're talking about, and I hope y'all can hear this when I hit play. So I'm gonna talk about trademark hypocrisy. So I'm gonna play a clip and let you hear what he has to say.
FBA, and there's people that have no ties. Like, bro, I don't got no ties to Tariq Nasheed. I know my brother Black Alpha Network ain't got no ties. I know content creators out here that they don't. He just trademarked the name as I would want a black person to do. I would want one of us to be owning what we're doing.
Smart enough.
Okay, so that's what he said. Now we're gonna pause. Let me get myself back to the big screen. So again, you heard him say a couple of things. He said, I ain't got no ties to Tariq Nasheed. Now, I guess I gotta take him at his words. I don't necessarily think that's important, but I do think it's interesting for you to say you don't have any ties with this man, but as soon as somebody who's in your camp says something negative about this man, you cancel that person. That sounds like a tie to me, but but you say you don't have any ties. Okay, cool. Shout out to Lord of Slaughter with the red, black, and green in the room in the Black Power fist. Shout out to Wow Television, who says FBA trashes Africans all day. But when they respond to the xenophobia, the group name switches back to Black American because it carries more power for the grift. I'm not mad with that assessment because the grift is the heart of the matter. The grift is the heart and soul of the FBA campaign. Peace to Mr. K. Greetings to you, my brother. The Pan-African Library is in the house. This is on YouTube. Shout out to, if I could get these names correct, shout out to Mr. Nursing Music, Judith Alexander, Charles Sonwura, Ursius, Alfred Wright, Bobby, Dennis Wagner. I'm trying to get your names. I can't get everybody, but appreciate you for joining. Like, share, subscribe. I need button, especially over here. You know, y'all can do the thing that y'all do, the hearts and all the other stuff on TikTok. I'm not really TikTok literate, but like, share, and subscribe this video on YouTube. And if you're on Instagram, come on over here. So when you heard this brother say that he likes the fact, he appreciates the fact that Tariq Nasheed trademarked the Foundation Black American title, label, ethnonym. And I'm like, okay, cool. I don't have a problem if you say that's cool. Here's where my problem is. My problem is you continue to say that African American is not a word that we should be using because it's been trademarked. That's the problem. You say you can't use, you say you don't want to use African American because it's trademarked, but you don't hold that same standard for the new term. So that's what I got a problem with. Now I'm gonna play some other stuff. I'm gonna play another clip. But I wanted to make this clean and clear as we get through this. Because here's the thing. Now I did some research. I know I love to do my research. So I said, okay, you're saying African American is trademarked, and therefore we shouldn't use the name. And others, I'm not saying he makes this claim, but others have said adjacent to this, we don't want to use that name because Jesse Jackson gave it to us. And others make the claim, we don't want to use that name because white people gave it to us. And Coulter is the one that told y'all to use Foundational Black American. But that's another thing altogether. But let me tell you a little bit about some history. The push for the term African American, it came within what they call Black civic life. What does that mean? Not white authorities. Black people got together in December 1988. Yes, Jesse Jackson was the figurehead. Jesse Jackson didn't stand at the top of the mountain and say, hear ye, from this day forward, we shall all go by the words African American. No, he convened a convention. 75 Black organizations came. Now, some of those organizations were college-oriented fraternities and sororities. Now, I know FBA got a problem with them. Hey, we might be able to ride on that one together. I got issues with sororities and fraternities. Now, my primary issue is I don't like the fact that they align themselves, they configured themselves around Greek letters when, to me, they coulda, shoulda, woulda did African insignia. They coulda, woulda, shoulda did Metuneta from Kemet. But that's me. That's just one of my little small issues. But I ain't throwing them in the trash because I got an issue with them. Nuance is a thing. It's a real valuable thing. But again, what am I talking about? Jesse Jackson called a convention. 75 Black organizations. So there were fraternities and sororities, there were political groups, there were social groups, there were mutual aid societies, there were advocacy groups. Everybody converged. There was conversation, there was discussion, there was historians. Now, the after hours report, the after action report, reported that there was an overwhelming consensus for the change. Overwhelming. I didn't say every human that came to the convention agreed, but the overwhelming consensus was, yes, we're going to go with that name. Now, again, yeah, Jesse Jackson was the figurehead, just like Martin Luther King was the figurehead, just like Malcolm X was the figurehead, just like Marcus Garvey was the figurehead. But the individual at the top is not the lone sole proprietor of all of the actions and activities that it takes to get a thing accomplished. So stated reasons for the name change then was cultural integrity, was historical context. They actually said, hey, Italians, people, Americans of Italian descent, they proudly called themselves Italian Americans. Now, you may say today, they don't do it no more today. I don't believe you. I think they still do. People who are Americans who are of Jewish descent, they will still call themselves Jewish American. You go into an Armenian neighborhood and they will consider themselves Armenian Americans. So this was one of the reasons they said it. They said, well, look, everybody else is attaching themselves to their heritage. But FBA said, we ain't got nothing with Africa. So that's one of the reasons that 75 organizations came together and said, yeah, we agree we need to make some changes on this identity, this name, this label. But that's not the only reason they said it. Because the historians took the platform and said, quite frankly, listen up, Black people. We have amongst our own kind various groups of us who have been calling ourselves African American. It dates back to 1782. That's just a little bit over 100 years from the year they were having the convention. So there's social reasons, there's heritage reasons, there's historical reasons to honor your ancestors who called themselves African and African American. That have nothing to do with whether or not you like Jesse Jackson, whether or not you agree with Jesse Jackson, whether or not you think still Jesse Jackson gave us the name. Now, I'll also tell you, because I did the research. If you go looking at the U.S. Patent Office, what is it? USPT, U.S. Patent and Trademark Office? Yeah, I don't deny that there are at least two. There are at least two trademarks that exist on that actual term, African American. But the trademarks, first and foremost, came after the name change. They're attached to companies that sell commercial products, beef, chicken, hell, even pork. One of them's located in North Carolina. It's called African American Incorporated. One of them, I believe, is in Georgia. It's called African American Quality Products Incorporated. I think they sell stuff like mouse pads. But these are products. And the trademark office considers them products, not naming of or not ownership of the ethnonym. So even that is different because Tariq owns the ethnonym. If I'm wrong, correct me. That's okay. He owns something. But I tell you what, I couldn't find any public documentation that establishes that either of those two companies are white, are owned by whites. So again, what I'm talking about is what is at least perceived hypocrisy. Now, I don't mind if you tell me, well, brother, you just wrong. I got a brother that's commenting all over my page, been commenting for 4 or 5 days, telling me how wrong I am. You can tell me I'm wrong. Show and prove to me I'm wrong. I'll do a new video saying, yep, I was wrong. Exactly. Mr. K says, just like you got Irish Americans and Chinese Americans and Japanese Americans. Many times, or at times, brothers and sisters from the Caribbean, they hyphenate their name. I'm Jamaican American. I'm Bahamian or Bahamian American. Continental Africans say I'm Ghanaian American. I'm Rwanda American. I'm Ethiopian American. I'm Nigerian American. They don't use it all the time. They may not need to use it all the time. Anthony is a troll. Y'all can duke it out with Anthony. He's a troll in the chat room on YouTube. Y'all can duke it out with him if you want to. I think he's gonna help keep the algorithm bumping though. So welcome aboard, troll. So those are some of the points that I've been trying to make. Now, Be Easy says the term African American is a grift and a misnomer. False. All right. Oh, now, if you okay, I don't agree. But if you want to put something in the chat to explain what you mean, I may continue a conversation with you. But I'm not changing my position that it specifically and directly connects us to our heritage. So in my mind, you can only call it a grift if you're going to attempt to tell us that we're not African, that we're not connected to the African continent. So any of those Dane Calloway Aboriginal Indian arguments, they're not welcome here. But let me go on, because now here's the thing. Let's go back to this brother. And now I think we're going to get into the meat of something very controversial. Well, at least we're going to try to. Now, because there's a section of his video where he actually brings in Professor Smalls. Now, I'm not saying he brings in a video clip of Professor Smalls. And I think this is interesting. So we're going to try to deal with it. I don't know if I can play the whole thing, but you know what they say, for educational purposes. So let me see if I can get this onto the screen. Well, I guess I can't. Okay, so there we go. We got it on the screen, so to speak. Wow. Okay, so we got it on the screen. It's here some kind of way. So he's going to introduce this clip. And I think it actually features another FBA troll, O'Shea Duke Jackson. But here we go. So listen to what they're saying.
Something that's important, delineation language. Now, I did not know this, but shout out to Brother George Macon over at Street Media TV. And he actually had receipts of this delineation language.
Now, I'm going to pause for a second. I need to set this up. Again, you hear him saying that Professor Smalls is utilizing delineation language. Now, it's very important. Trust me, I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouth. And so here's what I mean. Now, like I may have used a different phrase. If I was trying to make the argument that what we mean by delineation today can be sourced and surfaced and traced back to similar sounding language, although we take it in a different direction, I would have set it up sort of like that. Because what I would be trying to say is what I'm standing on is not the same as what he is standing on. But I think that his words can be applicable. Now, if that's what he means by the phrase delineation language, okay. I'm not sure that's what he means. I rather think he's trying to just slide a fast one in on you by using the term delineation and telling you, see, Professor Smalls believes in it too. But I could be wrong. That could be just me having an incorrect interpretation of the phrase. He's using delineation language. But I just want you to take root to that. Listen to that. Now let's go back to what he's actually saying, what they're actually going to play.
From Professor James Small.
Allow people to have us deny our identity as African Americans, while other Africans come from other places and try to assume that identity for economic reasons and political reasons, and yet do not ally themselves with the African American in most instances. That those immigrant African community tend to ally themselves with the European American, not understanding what the historical relationship between the African American and the European American is, or the war.
All right, I'm gonna pause it again. Let me pause it again just to make this point. Because again, even if you're buying into this idea that Professor Smalls supports delineation, even though he said he doesn't. If you listen carefully to what Professor Smalls says, even when he is critiquing some people in the other Black communities, he says they're doing it not understanding. They're doing it without proper understanding. Hey, we here at the proper perspective, so we always want to make sure that we provide the proper perspective. So to me, it's very critical that even in this commentary, he's saying if they behave this way, they do so without proper understanding. And that's important because FBA don't care. But that's important because if they're doing it without the appropriate understanding, the proper perspective, the correct knowledge, Professor Smalls is the type of brother, is the type of elder who will still work with you and get you to understand what's going on. He won't throw you in the trash the way FBA do. But let's keep moving. Get it back onto the screen. Oh. Okay, so here we go.
Or the cultural war and the spiritual war and the economic war and the political war that still exists between those two communities. So when you're an African from another place and you come and say, well, I can't get caught up in that, I'm here to make money, then you ally yourself with someone I'm at war with and wonder why I treat you a certain way. So you need to understand what you have just done. Besides disrespecting me in my country, something I would never do to you in your country. I would not go to Senegal and choose the side of the French against you. I would not come to Jamaica and choose the side of the Brits against you. So why would you come to America and choose the side of the white American for whatever reason, economic, political, cultural, or whatever, against me and my interests, and then tell me I'm unwelcoming to you? I welcome my friends and my brothers and sisters. I do not welcome my enemies, whether they look like me or not.
Okay. So it's a good speech. Peace to Reclaim NYC. How you doing, brother? So let me get back to this big screen. Oops. There we go. So again, so you heard Professor Smalls. Now again, I'm not here telling you that Professor Smalls never critiques our brothers and sisters or ourselves. He does. He critiques all of us equally and evenly. Critiquing our behavior is not hate. That's what elders are supposed to do. They're supposed to critique us and tell us where we are behaving incorrectly. And Professor Smalls has done that on multiple occasions over the years, and in particular in reference to this FBA thing. But see, certain brothers like to, FBA folk like to still twist the words and use them out of context and misconstrue and promote their ideologies. So this is what I'll say. Even though O'Shea Duke Jackson says, see family, he's using delineation language. Small's actual words never once contained the word delineation. Delineation wasn't even a word in use. But Small's actual words don't contain delineation. They don't say delineate or any variant of that word. He talks about some immigrants who failed to ally with African Americans. He talks about choosing sides, but he says welcoming friends versus enemies. Now, the specific word, receipts, family, we need receipts. That ain't there. That's not delineation language. That's my point. Professor Smalls is not utilizing delineation language. Let me say it that way it's absolutely clear. So what I'm actually distinguishing here, let me name it precisely. Behavioral critique is what Professor Smalls is doing. That's absolutely categorically different than categorical delineation, polarization, delineation. Professor Small is critiquing a specific conditional pattern. Some immigrants who ally politically, who ally economically with white interests against African American interests. And he says, if you do that, I'll treat you as an adversary. I don't have a problem with that, because that is not saying every Black immigrant person in every Black immigrant group does it. He says some do it. So Professor Smalls is upholding the African principle, the Pan-African principle, the African American principle of reciprocity. Reciprocity based on conduct. So, and what I mean is, even for his words, his speech, his ideas, and what he's saying, it's not a gauntlet. It's not a draw the line in sand, etched in stone, always and forever. It is revocable. If you ally differently, you get treated differently. That ain't what FBA does. That ain't what delineation is. Delineation is a grift, family. Because FBA actually deploys delineation as a permanent, absolute, full stop, categorical boundary, a brick wall, a fixed identity, a fixed lineage, a distinction that can never melt. You know, we live in the melting pot. That is meant to hold regardless of any individual's conduct. If you are Jamaican, you must be against me. That's what FBA says. They don't care about your specific behavior. They use whatever is different about your specific heritage to determine whether you legally or socially can be accepted into the group. Now, what they will tell you, you don't get it. You don't understand. This is about reparations. No, it ain't, because they don't work on reparations. Now, they let Yvette Carnell, they let Antonio Moore, they let ADOS work on reparations, and even they don't work on reparations. They work on changing the name in the census. But if they were working on reparations, that would be a structurally different kind of boundary, or a different kind of boundary drawing principle. So but without that, collapsing them into the same word is either sloppy or deceptively convenient, depending on how charitable you want to be about your understanding and interpretation of their behavior, their ideology, their wordsmanship. Now, I might go so far as to say this. Perhaps, I'm not 100% sure, but perhaps my strongest piece of supporting evidence, if I'm writing this like a thesis. Again, you look at the words that Professor Smalls uses, and you look at the actions that Professor Smalls demonstrates. His actual ongoing conduct contradicts. Anybody trying to say he's delineating, he's agreeing with us, he's using our language. If he were doing the delineation, especially as separation, identity monitoring, he wouldn't still be doing grassroots work across the Caribbean, across the continent of Africa. Even within America, he still works with continental Africans who live here, with Caribbeans who live here, and all throughout and amongst and within various subgroups of the African American community. And he does it all simultaneously. So if you're someone trying to draw a permanent ethnic boundary, you don't keep working across the boundary. If you're someone drawing that boundary, then you stay on the inside of your line. And I'm not being rhetorical about that. I'm being literal. I'm being actual. His actions are the counter evidence to the label some people are trying to pin on him. And that is also why he came out and said, I want to make it definitively clear, I'm not with that FBA stuff. So let me see what's going on in the chat. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Lord of Slaughter says, any African who sides with the European is no different from Clarence Thomas. Exactly. But even with Clarence Thomas, now we have names. Some people appreciate the names we have. Some people don't appreciate the names we have. I may not necessarily use them today. I've used them in the past. But even those names that we have, disparaging as they may be, we don't deny the fact that he is an African American. We don't deny the fact that he is still a product of the same American experiment that we are. We don't deny the fact that he comes up from slavery like we do. FBA don't do that. The minute you disagree with an FBA person, you get kicked out the group. You get canceled. You ain't FBA no more. Nobody ever said Clarence Thomas ain't African American no more. So let me see what Nick Perry is up to. Nick Perry, misconstrue this. You voted for Donald Trump. You voted for Clarence Thomas. You voted for all the morons on the Supreme Court. And now you can't vote. That's an interesting statement. I don't know if I agree with all of that, depending on who you're directing it to. But anybody that voted for Trump, yeah, you get what you get. And we all are suffering from it. It's one of the reasons I can't. It's another reason I have no appreciation for the FBA movement, because they deliberately try to influence other black folk, 8% of black women, 10-15% of black men, to vote for Trump. Now, like this moniker, Mr. K says FBA actually stands for fascist black antagonists. I think I had another one the other day, but if it comes to me, I'll repeat that. Shout out to Shabaka. Peace for joining in. Shabaka says Juke Jackson in Africa, hating Africans. FBA running from Africans and Africanness. All right, yeah, we preach it to the choir. Shout out to Shabaka. And Lord of Slaughter, I agree with you. FBA attacks all black people. FBA is just like Frank Zanu. Frank Zanu was from the continent. The FBA people is from America, from the African American community. Both of them ain't never seen a black group they couldn't criticize. Yeah, okay, I don't know what King Divine is talking about. That's a bot. King Heather trying to speak on our reparations, and we had put tethers in their place in Atlanta, Texas, and California. All tethers must go, no exception. I'm a tether, and I ain't going nowhere. But here's an honest question, King Divine. I've heard this before. FBA people said they putting in the work in Atlanta, Texas, and California. I can't find no evidence of that. So I make the statement, I tend to make the statement that's a lie, but I'm not trying to stand on that. I'm trying to say, teach me, brother, who are the FBA people putting in the work in any of those cities? Every time I look it up, I find African Americans who go by the name African American, who consider themselves African American, being the ones in the legislature, being the ones writing up the bills, being the ones drafting up the documents, being the ones having the conversations and doing the networking and liaisoning and all this other stuff with the politicians. I cannot find a person who has said, I'm FBA, doing anything except showing up on public talk day. But I don't mind being wrong. I just need some names. Because again, other than that, if you give me names equals receipts, I say, hey, okay, here we go. But other than that, what I see is FBA trying to take credit for what African Americans do, just like they do with everything else. African Americans have done a lot in this country. FBA ain't did nothing in the 10 years of their infantility existence, but talk and complain. Lord Slaughter says FBA doesn't even do that. Always in our business. Exactly. They say they want to delineate, but they stay over here. Delineate again. Now, I'll never say I know exactly what delineate means. I keep waiting for the FBA people to tell me what delineate means to them, because every time I say, well, delineate means this, no, that ain't right, brother. You don't understand. That's wrong. You didn't get it. So I stopped trying to speak for them. I'll say, okay, you tell me what delineation means. But in my mind, it means separating yourself from the rest of the group. Well, African Americans have largely said, we don't want nothing to do with y'all. So your delineation is you're supposed to be off to your own. I said it last week. Go get your own tiny little village. Go create FBA town. And stop taking credit for what African Americans are doing. The Lord of Slaughter says, exactly, Clarence is one of us. We just don't rock with him. Reclaimer says that's exactly what they are. King Divine, FBA only vote for the couch unless you give us reparations, land, anti-black crime hate bill. Yeah, that's the point. That's why you're not appreciated, because you only vote for the couch. I'm glad you admit it. Shabaka says the FBA cannot exist without Pan-Africanism or Africa. What could they discuss? The FBA is compromised. They'd have nothing to discuss without Pan-Africanism. All they do is misconstrue everything. Reclaimers, so y'all putting the white man on the couch. LOL. Mr. K, how long have you been streaming, Shabazz? I'm listening to 3 live streams at the same time. Whoa, my brother. I just been up here for about 40 minutes. My Reclaimer says my OG made a video on the exact statement years ago. LOL. Ah, shucks. I wish I knew exactly one. You could tell me what that is. That's so funny. How this dude legit admitted that. Reclaimer says we putting the white man on the couch because he treating foreign blacks better. LOL. King Divine, there are plenty of black Americans. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, there are plenty of African Americans. There ain't a whole lot of foundational black Americans. That's the cult group that you belong to. Reclaimer says that's insane logic, and Israelites are more organized than them. I will give you that. I don't rock with the Black Hebrew Israelites, but they are definitely way more organized than FBA. So again, let me get back to the subject matter at hand. Because, so what were we talking about? We were talking about, okay, I did all the little comments thing. Like, share, and subscribe, family. Please hit the like button. Hype this up if you got any of those extra hype points that you want to throw my way. So what I want to say is, let me try to play devil's advocate. An FBA advocate might say, well, isn't naming a group's behavior and saying, I'll treat you differently because of it? Isn't that what delineation is? Drawing a line between us and them, and the them is those who are non-aligned with us. I would say, okay, that is at least an honest question. And here's my honest answer. If you draw the line the way Professor Smalls draws it, if the line that you draw is conditional and conduct-based, not categorical, and not identity-based, then maybe you have something. It's a difference between, I don't trust people who act as informants. That's conditional. That's conduct-based. And I don't trust anyone from your ethnic group. That's not conditional. That's not conduct-based. That's identity-based. That's gatekeeping. That's line drawing. That's permanent regardless of what they do. It could be coming to help you, like the Ghanaian that rescued a black-owned bank that was about to go bankrupt, and Uncle Sam was like, we can't wait to get our hands on it. And a Ghanaian rescued that bank. It's still open today. It's still servicing customers in that Black community, in that African American community that is populated by African Americans, Ghanaian Americans, Nigerian Americans, Senegalese Americans, Jamaican Americans, so on and so forth. But FBA say they'll never do nothing with us or for us. So I like point this out. I'm gonna go a little bit further with this critique. Because a lot of FBAs, the FBA energy, the zeitgeist, the cult, they like to turn around and point fingers. I'll give you an example. They want to throw salt on the name of all Somalian Americans. They get this from the playbook of Donald Trump, and that's something to take note of. They like, all Somalians are our enemy. This is what they do. This is that. Do you draw the line based on the identity, or is it based on specific behaviors? So they've been jumping up and down, talking about the Somalians are our enemy. And why? Because some of them don't think that they're Black. There are Somalians that say, I'm Black. I see myself as Black. I see myself as African. There are some Somalians that don't. Some Somalians say, I see myself as Arabic. I see myself as just strictly Somalian. But what FBA do is say, all Somalians are the enemy because none of them want to claim the Blackness. That's drawing a line. That's drawing a categorical, identity-based line. That's your delineation. That's not what Professor Smalls does. Now they get out here and say, we disagree. We don't like them Somalians because they don't vote like we vote. Most Somalians vote Democrat. Most African Americans vote Democrat. FBA voted for Trump, and one group of Somalians in one city voted for Trump. They don't even align with them. Why? Because they're Somalian. Again, even when y'all interests align, you still don't like them because they're Somalian. Now, if that's your delineation, you can have that. That's why it's wrong. That's why it's bad. That's why it's harmful. That's why it's a grift. That's why it's not what Professor Smalls does. The examples just keep going on and on. So what Professor Smalls is upholding is normal in-group reciprocity. That's an African principle. That's a traditional African idea and practice and custom. What FBA is upholding is white supremacist ideology, divide, conquer. We don't need them. Exactly, Lord of Slaughter. I wasn't born in Africa. Africa was born in me. And shout out to Kwame and Nkrumah. King Divine says, I know that's what I'm trying to tell them. Stop babbling and build. I could never live like that. Shout out to Lord of Slaughter for the super chat. My brother. Appreciate that. FBA left alone will be back in the field. That's where they want to go. That's exactly where they want to go. They trying to go there to hell in a handbasket. Now, King Divine says at least Black Americans are more organized than African, Haitians, Jamaicans put together. Not even close. You can't qualify that. You can't. First off, again, I'm going to correct you, my brother. African Americans. Now, as to whether or not we are more organized than them, if we are, then why is it that they're doing more? In certain categories, we may be more organized under some umbrellas, under some categories. Every group, every population group is going to have their strengths and weaknesses. So you can say, well, African Americans are more organized under ABCD, but you could also say Haitians, Africans, Jamaicans are more organized under EFG and H. I think it very interesting that CARICOM is the Caribbean Blacks organized around reparations. They're getting a lot further. Ghana is organized. Ghana is the continental African Blacks. They have an organizational push for reparations. They're talking to the United Nations. They're getting a lot closer because they're organized and they're all working with the same goal. FBA ain't working on nothing. African Americans are working on reparations on the federal level and in 3 or 4 states, 4 or 5 states. You could just as easily make the argument that it's almost equivalent. But which group got the United Nations to make a world proclamation that human trafficking of the African is the worst thing that has ever been documented? That wasn't the African Americans. It certainly wasn't the foundational Black Americans who spent the whole week standing on the sidewalk screaming, "Go home." So again, let's go back to the brother's video. We're going to talk about some contradictions, some more contradictions. Let's go back to the brother's video. Let me pull up this next little clip. And let me share the screen, family. All right, so here we go. See what he talk about.
And it is
Do y'all hear this contradiction? It's like y'all just creating
smart enough to not.
I hear that they don't. He just trademarked the name as I would want a black person to do. I would want one of us to be owning what we're doing.
Smart enough to not organize it. It's a hashtag that he's profiting off. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because the message is very clear. And it is.
Do y'all hear this contradiction? It's like y'all just creating chaos. This lady just said there's nothing wrong with it. If there's nothing wrong with it, then why is he a grifter? Why is you calling this man a grifter, bro? You got to be canceled for that. There's
right there. Okay. So let's think about what he's saying and what just transpired. Now, Dana, and I gotta say, like I said last week, I am surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised that Dana took this approach. But Dana is calling out a specific behavior, a specific action. And she says, this particular action is something I take issue with. Now he says, if you're gonna call the man a grifter, how you gonna then turn around and say something positive about him? And he calls that a contradiction. He actually says, y'all creating chaos. This lady just said there's nothing wrong with it. Well, if there's nothing wrong with it, why is he a grifter? Maybe, let me try to say this. I don't know if this is the right way to say it. I guess he has a problem with, there's a big word, starts with the letter A, accountability. Now, I don't want to say something disparaging like perhaps he lacks the mental capacity to comprehend accountability. But I will say this is what nuance is. I've said it a lot. You've heard a few other people saying, look, we need to improve our critical thinking skills. Nuance is about the notion that nothing is 100%. Nothing is always black or white, left or right. Now, even me, I can call Tariq a grifter. I can say, I don't agree with much of nothing about the FBA label, but that's still not 100%. I just said, I agree we need to be working on reparations. I agree that FBA likes to talk about reparations. Maybe this much. I haven't totally thrown them completely in the trash. I might be slow walking it. But what was that phrase? You know, chew the meat and spit out the bones. I even accept the fact that there are always going to be some people who want to call themselves by these three letters. That's what nuance is. Understanding the complexity of it. Now, if you can't understand it, I mean, there is something to be said about capacities. Now, but again, she does. She repeatedly calls him a grifter. She repeatedly criticizes very specific conduct. She says the way he handled Professor Smalls, or his dispute with Professor Smalls, she called it sassy energy. And she calls him a grifter for his behavior. And she says, I don't respect that behavior. She says that behavior is sucker. But in the same breath, she explicitly endorses other elements of that man's work, whether I agree with that or not. What I'm saying is she's exercising nuance. She's exercising critical skills, critical thinking skills. He is not. For him, you say one bad thing, you're out, you get canceled. She says she appreciates his documentaries. Again, that's her. She even says later, I'm not saying black people don't need to be repping FBA. So again, she is not disaligning herself with the FBA movement. But the FBA movement is saying, you said one thing about Tariq that's bad. You got to go. I'm sorry, family, but that's cult energy. So no matter what, you cannot dismiss the fact that her critique is targeted at very specific behavior in a very specific dispute. She even directly says he should have said that to Professor Smalls directly, one-on-one, because they both know each other, and it's already been documented that they both got each other's phone numbers and they talk to each other. But no, Tariq came out, CIA, came out the project. Whole scale rejection of him. Whole scale rejection of his documentaries. And all of the cult followers followed through. We gotta let him go, family. So again, if it's not hypocrisy, then it's just basic dislike of accountability. Or something about that mental capacity that I don't want to say again. So again, let me see what's going on in the chat. Mr. K says, show the documentation of an FBA being organized politically or socially or economically or culturally or legally. I think he said and, but I'll take just one of those. I'll take just one of those. Lord of Slaughter says they're crazy. Shout out to Mr. K. The super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Brother Shabazz, why not play Dana's old clip that I sent you? Because she really went in on Tariq, calling him out for how he treated Professor Smalls. I think I'm going to get to it in this one. If I don't get to it in this one, I am going to cover it on another one. King Divine at K. Come on now. Do I really have to explain Black American history? Now I would need 10 people if you name Africans and Caribbeans. That did something significant to humankind. King Divine, that is, whew, like I said, I know you're going to keep using the word Black American. It's African American. And that is one of the most ignorant statements I've seen today. Again, and I mean, honestly, I mean ignorant in the innocent sense of the word, and I mean ignorant in the pejorative sense of the word. Now, you can just admit you just don't know enough about Jamaican history and African history. That's cool. You probably shouldn't, especially coming from the white American school curriculum. If we didn't take it upon ourselves to push and promote our own information, you wouldn't know 10 African Americans. But if you drop yourself down in a Jamaican society, if you drop yourself down in African society and you deal with the school and the curriculum in those worlds, you will see. For every 10 that you got here, they got 10 there. Saying anything otherwise is ignorant. You just lack knowledge, or it's pejoratively ignorant, which means it's deceptive, which means it's harmful, which means it's condescending. Anything else on the negative side of terminology and adjectives. And like I said, I'm going to keep saying African American. It is African American for me. Now, I'm going to move on, though. Move on. We're going to look at this next clip. Again. So now we're going to have a little, perhaps we're going to have a vocabulary lesson. Let me see if I can find this next clip. So we're going to have a vocabulary conversation. So check out what the brother says.
He sounds so stupid, bro. Like she shouldn't even did this video. She lost all credibility, in my opinion, by what you talk.
You know, maybe that's too extensive, but the fact is that you're making money because you are a content creator. Tariq Nasheed is a content creator. He's not a historian. He's not a freedom fighter. He's not an intellect. He's not a scholar. He is a content.
That's not a freedom fighter. What are you talking about? This man is he's putting in his work. You got to respect what he's doing.
Oh, really? So here we go. That's what I'm talking about, family. Vocabulary lesson time. That's what we're going to start talking about. Now, she gives her own little breakdown. He is not this, that, or the other. And hey, I'm in alignment with that. And he's taking issue. He's not a freedom fighter. No, my brother, he is not a freedom fighter. So here's my question. Just when, since you like clearly he's under the impression that Tariq Nasheed is a freedom fighter. When the hell did standing on business? When the hell did getting your money, securing the bag, become freedom fighting? Earning a buck is not freedom fighting. When did these two terms get mixed up? Now look, I ain't pocket watching, family. I ain't mad at nobody that wants to secure the bag. We all have the responsibility to secure the bag in our lives in whatever ways we seem fit. Hopefully you choose some righteous ones, but I ain't got nothing to do with that. Get your money the way you feel you need to. But that's not a freedom fighter. Clocking in at 9 o'clock and clocking out at 5 don't make you a freedom fighter. Producing a documentary don't make you a freedom fighter. Abu Jamal is a freedom fighter. Freedom fighters get set up by the government. Freedom fighters get thrown in jail. Freedom fighters get tracked by the police, surveilled by the police. A lot of them catch bullets. So the notion that Tariq Nasheed is a freedom fighter, I'm sorry, but you have just drifted into some kind of is Mr. Rourke and Tattoo somewhere in your vicinity? Because you on Fantasy Island. Like I said, nothing wrong with getting paid, however you get paid. But there is an actual definition of freedom fighter. There are actual qualifications and characteristics to being a freedom fighter. H. Rap Brown, freedom fighter. Huey P. Newton, freedom fighter. They put their lives on the line for Black freedom, for African freedom, for Africans in America to have freedom, liberty, justice, and equality. The brothers who joined the Black Liberation Army after the Black Panthers, the brothers who joined the Republic of New Africa, those were freedom fighters trying to lay down stakes and get land to set up our own government. Those are freedom fighters. Calling a content creator, hey, I'm a content creator. I would never make the mistake of saying I'm a freedom fighter. That's disrespectful to the heritage, the moniker, the label of being a freedom fighter, the responsibilities that fall on you when you're a freedom fighter. It's disrespectful to the people, our own elders and ancestors, who actually paid the price of freedom fighting. So again, yes, I'm sorry, bruh. Tariq Nasheed is not a freedom fighter. That has nothing to do with the fact that I disagree with, the fact that I'm misaligned with everything that Tariq says. He's just not a freedom fighter. Now, King Divine, you say he's a freedom fighter because he paid for victims' funerals. That makes you a benefactor. That's not again, that's still not freedom fighting. If you pay for a victim's funeral, you are helping. That's a benefactor. Now, King Divine says, just like Dr. Umar, people say he don't do nothing, but plenty of families said Dr. Umar helped them out. Can't be this slow. I wouldn't call Dr. Umar a freedom fighter. That's not what freedom fighting is. Helping people out is just helping people out. We have mutual aid societies for that. Now, Baby London says tether babble and chimped out are the two talking points of FBA. Grifter and scammer are the talking points of anti-FBA. You Negroes are divided and conquered already. Well, I almost would tend to agree with you. I can't help but say that it was the FBA that manifested the division. But that's also why I would say, as long as delineation means retreat to your own small little camp and be left alone, go ahead. Now, dang 4160, I might would entertain your question, but it's a little, again, it too is on the side of ignorance. Dang says, I am from Africa. Why do African Americans moan about being in America? Come to Gabon and you would last 2 minutes. Ha ha ha. You know, if you don't understand, you don't understand. Clearly, you don't. Lord of Slaughter, FBA is a group of armchair revolutionaries. I'll give you that. So then maybe Tariq Nasheed is an armchair freedom fighter. Kevin, Mr. K, Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, Patrice Lumumba, Sekou Toure, Nelson Mandela, they were freedom fighters. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Marcus Garvey, David Walker, they were freedom fighters. Elijah Muhammad, Booker T. Washington, they were freedom fighters. The Black Panthers were freedom fighters. At best, you could say Tariq Nasheed is a documentarian. That's the best moniker you could give him. So let's move on, especially since people are still tripping over the term African American, Black American. I'm going to say there's an agenda going on. There's an agenda going on. I'm going to always say African American. I'd rather say I'm African in the West. I actually say that privately, but you know, I'm a skip it along and say African American. But let's jump to this agenda thing that goes on. Let me see if I can get that position. Because this is the thing. Okay, so we get that together. Let's add this to the screen, to the stage or whatever. So check out what he says. When it comes to having an agenda.
Term down that we're gonna stand with our own. But y'all trying to attack the man, it shows me that y'all got some kind of agenda.
Creator.
Yourselves. See, when you call yourself African or when you call yourself any of them terms that somebody else gave them that term. It's okay that we want to respect somebody that's holding our term down that we're gonna stand with our own. But y'all trying to attack the man, it shows me that y'all got some kind of agenda.
Creator.
Down that
Okay, so again, this agenda thing. Here's what's funny. And I think I already said this. I may just have to repeat my whole spiel about it. But he says, y'all trying to attack the man. That shows me y'all got some kind of agenda. If truth be an agenda, then I have an agenda. He says, again, he's making reference, we don't want the term African American because somebody else gave it to us. Now, I know what he means is somebody gave it to us, and I already talked about that. But he says somebody else gave it to us. I'm not trying to be technical, split hairs, not trying to do gotcha, but somebody gave everybody a name. Everybody on this planet got a name that either came from themselves, their name, somebody. So that's a little bit nonsense, but okay, but you being too technical about it. I already said, I already showed, I already looked into the history. We gave ourselves that name. we gave ourselves the name African American. Remember, I said December 1988, Jesse Jackson called 75 organizations. The historian stood up and said, we've documented it as far as back as 1782. No white people involved in that. So what's the agenda? The agenda is the truth. Again, see, you can stand on this as a fact. I want a new name. Why? Just because. Can't nobody disagree with you. You have a right to come up with a new name. When you say, I want a new name because the one we got came from white people, false. The agenda is truth. I want a new name because Jesse Jackson gave us that name. False. The agenda is truth. The historian said, the historian shown, we've been calling ourselves that since the 1700s, documented. Now, typically there's a rule in history that says when a thing gets into the documented record, that usually means it's already been there in oral tradition for a longer period of time. If you don't want to go by oral tradition, if you don't want to go by that historical metric, again, 1782, termed up by us, not white people. So the agenda that we have and the agenda that FBA have are polarizedly different. FBA wants to push false narrative. Now, I can't tell you they know they're pushing a false narrative. I can tell you they do not seem to appear to be demonstrating any type of research objectives or activities. Tariq said it, gotta be true. Tariq said it came from white folks, so we ain't gonna use it. Nobody think, look it up. Well, who's the white person that gave it to us? Tariq said it came from Jesse Jackson, and you go deny 100 years, almost 100, or a little bit over 100 years worth of people, worth of black people saying we're African American. You're going to deny the 75 civic organizations that came together and said we're African American. So who's got the negative agenda? Like I said, I stand on the agenda of truth. He literally says anyone who disagrees with him must have an agenda. So like I said, yeah, clip this if you want to. I'm going to own it. My agenda is truth, facts, logic, evidence, receipts. Guilty as charged. What's missing from his side of the argument is evidence. All they got is circular reasoning. Sorry about that. Circular reasoning dressed up with conviction. That's all they have. So let me see what else is going on in the chat. Let me see. What did I miss? Social workers. So Dang says, it's not Dang. Avoid Kevin, Miss K. Okay, so here we go. All right, I'm not reading negative comments. Again, exactly. Mr. K makes the point to King Divine, who keep trying to push this idea that Tariq is a freedom fighter or whatnot. So Mr. K says, if that's the case, then every black person who works as a social worker is a freedom fighter. If that's the case, every black person who works as a teacher, every black person who works at any job that you have is a freedom fighter. If that's the way you define it. Well, if that's how you define it, okay, again, Kuti Chagalia says you have the right to define your own terms. Just know you're destroying the value of any definition whatsoever. Now, avoid blackback. See question, what is an Afro-American? Thanks for the troll. Lord of Slaughter, yes, there's definitely an agenda. They are using it in South Africa too. Exactly. The real official agenda is divide and conquer. The FBAs are working the white supremacist playbook, and whatever you call it, the March and March, the Operation the Doula, whatever her name is, Jacinta Zuma, it's all the same zeitgeist. Now, Dang says, I am African, Black America is not African. No more, you're an American here in Africa. We don't see you as being African. Okay, Dang, we don't care. Here's the thing. I never cared what a continental African, if that's what you are, sees me as. As long as I don't even need Kwame Nkrumah to stand on what I'm saying. But since Kwame Nkrumah has already said it, I am not an African because I was born in the continent. I am an African because the continent was born in me. I don't care how you see it. That's no different than from whether or not I care how racist white people or white people in general see me. White people said that we were 3/5 of a human. I don't care that that's how they see me. Their optics, their opinions of me is none of my business. Science says I have African DNA. That's all I need. King Divine says social workers do not pay for people. Social workers do not stand up for your rights. Social workers do not educate the people. That's actually not even true. South Africa was still under colonial rule when Nelson Mandela was in prison. Now, Baby London says, who cares, WTF? Your opinion is. Now, Baby London says, I am a freedom fighter. The fight style has changed. Even the enemy has changed from the others to our own. Okay. I agree the fight style has changed. I don't know what you do to consider yourself a freedom fighter. So I can't criticize you until I have more knowledge about you. I'm criticizing people who think Tariq Nasheed is a freedom fighter. I disagree with that label, and I disagree with whatever you use as the definition. But paying for somebody's funeral don't make you a freedom fighter. Dang says, just like white Europeans don't see white Americans as European, it's the same in Africa. Again, and white Americans are European. It doesn't matter what, it doesn't, in that respect, it's like, okay, you got these layman lenses, common man ideas and opinions. Science don't give a good rat's about the common man's ignorant opinions. If your heritage, if your DNA extends to a particular continent, that's just what it is. There's definitely some Chinese people in China who would look at Chinese Americans and say, y'all ain't Chinese. And you know what the Chinese Americans say? F you, I'm Chinese. So again, let me see what Wild Television. FBA talks like they have an army with thousands of nuclear weapons. They don't even have 1,000 picket signs. Lord of Slaughter says the FBA is the agenda of white supremacy. It's clear as day. Otherwise, why are they trying to convince us? Again, if they really believe that they are the special secret sauce, if they really believe that delineation is the thing, why aren't they doing it? You see, when Black Muslims got together and said the best way for us to move forward is to come together as Black Muslims and work in our communities, that's what they did. They formed their own organizations and kept working for Black Muslims. Black Hebrew Israelites think that the best way to move forward is to form their own groups and work within their groups. FBA is like the crazy, fanatical, what is it called? Jehovah's Witnesses of the subgroups of the Black community. They just think we win when we go knock on doors. So let me continue. I love this chat, by the way. The chat group, y'all doing me something good here. So let's move to, I think I'm gonna move to this next clip. This one might be a little bit tricky for me to pull. Let me see if it's still there. Okay, so here we go. All right, so we're gonna pull up this next clip. Check out what the brother has to say.
He did not even say Tariq Nasheed.
James Smalls disrespected the lineage with what he created. To say that FBA, right, has some CIA in it without no proof, you can't say nothing. You just guessing and you trying to pull from somewhere where you ain't got nothing. You just trying to say that it's some kind of CIA involvement. That's wrong, bro. That's disrespectful. You feel me? That's very disrespectful. That's just like, bro, it's disrespectful in the street. If you in the streets, bro, and you ain't never told on nobody and you been a stand-up guy and you got a bozo that's gonna say, bro, I don't know, man. I think he the police, bro. He the police. And you ain't got no paperwork or nothing. You deserve that's out of pocket. That's disrespectful, bro.
All right. So y'all heard the argument, y'all heard the comments. You heard what the brother was saying. Very interesting. James Small disrespected the lineage with what he created to say that FBA has some CIA in it. Let me say this. And y'all might, like, of all the things that I have said today, I'm pretty sure even some of the brothers and sisters that view themselves in alignment with me as a Pan-Africanist or African-centered thinker or whatever, y'all might disagree with me on this. I don't know. But let's slow down on this one. The whole video, the whole conversation this brother is having is now about to collapse on itself. Now this is like 10 minutes into the videos. So he's spending 10 minutes insisting that FBA should apply to every single African-American descendant from the Southern plantations. That's the argument. Even the brothers and the sisters or whatever in the chat group, in the chat room, are saying we're all FBA. The entire lineage. No exceptions. You're trying to force your label onto all of us. But here's what I'm saying. That's your claim. We are all FBA. If that's true, and I never conceded that it really is, but if it's true, it becomes mathematically impossible for 0 people in this lineage to have any government connection or any CIA connection. It can't be done. You can't have it both ways. If you lay claim to every single last one of us, some of us work for the CIA, point blank. Again, I like to bring up this example. Clarence Thomas is African American. He sits on the Supreme Court. If FBA equals the whole lineage, then some of that lineage includes Clarence Thomas and other workers for the government. That's not even an insult. That's basic population math. See, you can't build this movement. You can't build a label that's meant to cover an entire ethnic group and then get shocked when someone points out, well, the group is not a monolith. There are people in the group who might do some things. Like Professor Small said, there is some CIA elements within the group. So whether you consider the group all of us, like you two trying to do, or you consider the group just that little small, teeny, tiny village, that subgroup, mathematically speaking, Unless all of y'all is unemployed, none of y'all work anywhere. Now, I know, an FBA devil's advocate might say, hey, well, this argument cuts both ways. He might say, well, thank you for making my point. That's exactly why some of us want a more defined, vetted category instead of one applied to literally everyone indiscriminately. That's what you might say. But again, I would still say you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. Because if the answer is we need a more defined, vetted subgroup, then you got to say what the vetting standard actually is and who administers it and how someone gets excluded. Now, once you've said that, once you've committed to that, you're committing to a subgroup. Not all of us. Now, you like to say that there is no such standard, even though there is a standard. It's applied to the entire lineage rhetorically, and then it's narrowed selectively whenever it's convenient. It's all of us except Malcolm X. It's all of us except Jasmine Crockett. It's all of us except Dana. Dana ain't one of us no more because she dared to criticize the leader. Again, FBA is all over the place. If you make negative comments, shout out to Baby London, then you should read the positive responses to your negativity. I'm not sure what that's about. Let me see. Let me go back to where I was. Let me see what else is going on in the chat. Lord of Slaughter says the FBA is the agenda. Oh no, I've said that. Yeah, okay. So go down some more. Exactly. Lord of Slaughter says go be FBA by yourself because we not interested. Dang is lying. Here in Africa, if you're not part of the tribe, we automatically kill you. Think yourself you're in America. Now again, dang, you gotta be a troll. I think this is interesting that you are spreading misinformation about Africa. Because if that's the case, I'd be dead already. I'd have been to Ghana 4 times, I've been to Senegal once, I've been to Egypt twice. I got cousins that's been to Kemet. I got uncles that's been to South Africa. I got friends that's been to Nigeria and Cameroon. Like, I know people that's been all over the continent. We don't never come up dead. We clearly not part of the tribe. You sound stupid. I don't know if you're even African. I don't know if you're continental African or some, white person cosplaying. And that's false. Baby London says, I wonder where Tariq got the idea for a new name. The same place Tariq copied the idea of a black museum. Tariq copycatted Baby London. Okay. Yeah, good question, Mr. K. King Divine says that Africa got its name from a white lady. At least that's a new one. I've already debunked Leo Africanus, Scipio Africanus. So now somebody's gonna come with, well, actually, it was a white woman. Well, who's the white woman? So we can debunk that too. Lord of Slaughter says, proper perspective, you see the game in South Africa using a beautiful woman to lead an anti-African movement. Yeah, I do see it. I mean, I understand why you call the woman beautiful. I get that. I ain't gonna disagree with that. So King Divine says, Franklin Douglas, we are Americans. We are not Africans, we're British Americans, European Americans, and African Americans, but our home is here and our destiny is here. Okay, well, I disagree with Franklin Douglas. So, okay, cool, you got a quote, because Malcolm X said, we are not Americans. We are people that used to be called Africans. We are people who are African Americans. Now, I don't know who Franklin Douglas is. I might look it up, I might not, but I can't imagine his authority being more credible and respectable than Malcolm X. But I mean, I could learn something new. Let's see what else is going on in the chat. Yeah, George Schuler, who I do happen to respect for some of his work, he did say that he argued that there was no distinct African essence left in Black Americans. Now, just because he argued it doesn't mean that it holds up. There are other scholars who have argued just the exact opposite, and they have more credibility. They have more evidence than what George Schuler promoted or proposed. So let me see what else is going on. You know, I am gonna try to I hope I can come back and copy these comments, because I'm gonna try to track, and that might be one of my new projects, to line up all of the thinkers in history who have said we not African, and line up all of the thinkers in history who have said we are African. I wonder how many more is going to be on which side, or if it's going to be dead even. So let me see. Now, the next thing, I think I already talked about this. Yeah, we talked about that. The delineation language we talked about. Now, okay, yeah, I might do this one. What was that timestamp? Because this one really lines up with some of the nonsense that some of the people in the chat room is saying. So let me see if I can get this clip. And it is almost a staple in FBA commentary. This idea, again, the idea is based upon rejecting, don't want to be an African, although the word African is synonymous with Black. But anyhow, so let's see if we can pull this brother back, add to this stage. So here we go. Let me get to the new hide comment. Okay, so now we got that situated. So listen to what's going on.
I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be a generic African. All right. If that's what you want to do, knock yourself out. I'm not pretending to be a generic African.
Well, my thing is, what do FBA do that you can kind of align them with the CIA or the FBI?
Okay. We're going to deal with one point at a time. So you can hear he was playing a piece from their dear leader, Tariq Nasheed. And he says, I'm not going to pretend to be a generic African. So here's one of my questions. Does anybody ever pretend to be a generic African? What is a generic African? Like, just like the so-called Gabonese brother in the chat room who says he's Gabonese or come to Gabon or whatnot, and he says he identifies by his tribe. Okay. So, and this is one of the things other FBA people say. They don't consider themselves Africans. They consider themselves whatever their tribe is. I disagree with that. But if that's the case, then ain't nobody on the continent a generic African. If they all going by their tribe, then they ain't generic Africans. So how can you pretend to be something that doesn't even exist? There is absolutely no such thing as a generic African. Never has been, never will be. There's no Pan-Africanist thought leader, author, institution builder, past or present, has ever even presented the idea of a generic African or flat black. It doesn't exist. Straw man fallacy. Create an argument that nobody has ever made and then attack it. Nobody but the anything but African crowd ever pretends that this is a position that can be argued, that this is a position that has merit. So attacking a claim that nobody holds, that's not rebuttal, that's not debunk, that's not analytical, that's not scholarly. That's straw man. That's inventiveness. So Lord of Slaughter says, finding out our tribe can be done using DNA as we cluster to certain tribes. That is true. I have found out mine, family. Yeah, King Divine is just you not really telling the whole truth about Malcolm X. Malcolm literally said we are Africans. Let's see. Shabaka says all of our great positive leaders never separated themselves from Africa. The less you know of Africa, the more you hate Pan-Africanism. We are born Africans. Thank you. Thank you, Shabaka. Mr. K says, King Divine, you're lying about listening to Malcolm because Malcolm never said that. He named his organization the Organization of Afro-American Unity. Now, how you gonna, like I said, see, a lot of times FBA proponents and advocates, they like to throw things out that sound good, but they never can hold up to the test of time and scrutiny and evidence. Now, Curtis Shines says, the only difference between Black Americans and Afro-Caribbeans is where their enslaved ancestors were dropped off. We all share the exact same roots. Thank you. Professor John Henry Clark said it as well. So now, King Divine says, Malcolm X leader, Malcolm X leader, Malcolm X leader, Elijah Muhammad. I said, I must have missed something. Lord of Slaughter says, oh, Skinny Joe, there is a domestic doofus. He doesn't understand how we directly threaten this economy. Mr. K says, Malcolm X adopted a Yoruba name, Omowale, which means the child who returns home. Home. Based on his African trips in 1964. You can't go home if you ain't African. Mr. K says, Tariq not a freedom fighter, and he's not an activist. He's not a lobbyist. He's not a delegate. He's not an educator. He's a content creator, plain and simple. And I'm like, look, there's nothing wrong with being a content creator. I'm a content creator. I'm not trying to grab any extra titles. I used to be a teacher. I used to be this. I used to be that. Right now, I'm just a content creator. I might say, hey, I used to be an author because I wrote a book and published it. But I'm not jumping through hoops to try to grab some titles that don't belong to me. CCN Sword says FBA equals FBI. Lord of Slaughter says Afro is synonymous with Africa, clearly, and with the funny emojis. King Divine says we are not the same. We created and invented over 5,000 patterns. Tell me any African or Caribbean that did something significant to mankind that benefit all people more than we have. You know what? I may take this on as my own little separate project so I can have like the slew of facts that I can drop. It's a stupid question. It's an ignorant question. And I mean ignorant in the innocent term, in the innocent sense, because when you lack knowledge, when you don't know, you just don't know. But I also mean it's an ignorant question in the pejorative sense. Lord Stoller says, yes, Holmes, Sankofa, go back and retrieve your global identity. Exactly. So now I'm gonna get back to this parts of this video. This next section. So like I said, I don't want to. I'm not even going to use my new favorite phrase is baby brains, but I'm gonna try not to use that. I will give this brother some credit. This next little section, I'm gonna try to give this brother some credit for this next little section. So y'all listen to what he says.
I don't see nothing that. Well, my thing is, what do FBA do that you can kind of align them with the CIA or the FBI? I don't see nothing that anybody, like, you can say that people were just saying stuff on the internet, but what people say, everybody's saying stuff on the internet. Like,
now, I think this is probably my favorite part of the video. And let me tell you why. So his question, what could FBA have done to make people think CIA? I'll give you credit. I'll say that, my brother, is an honest question. Here's an honest answer. It's a straightforward, it's a frank, it's an honest, open-ended question. And I'm not going to dodge it. What FBA has built structurally is a label with zero vetting. And I mean zero vetting is because they have a definition. If you were born here, it came here before 1965, because again, in their definition, if you're an immigrant black and you came here before 1965, you're still in the foundational Black American. But then when they find out your political affiliations with the Democrats, you're not foundational Black American, even though you've been here since before 1965. So they don't really have vetting. They have zero organizational accountability because they openly say, we're not an organization. They have complete open access and a complete closed door policy. Anyone can claim FBA. There are brothers on YouTube who claim FBA and no, they don't fit any of the definitions, and they still claim FBA, and FBA still promote them because they promote the ideology. But that ain't in the definition. So they can monetize their channels. They can speak in the name of FBA with no gatekeeping at all. But the second they say something FBA don't like, you're no longer FBA. That is precisely the profile that gets exploited historically. Malana Karinga's organization, US, wasn't infiltrated because it was secretly evil, although FBA might have you believe that. It was infiltrated because it was a real organization with real structure that could be manipulated through informants. Now, FBA doesn't even need infiltrating in that sense. They already wide open. Anyone genuinely worried about government exploitation should be raising exactly this concern. A hashtag. It's a hashtag. You got it wrong, my brother. We're not an organization. We a hashtag. With no membership control. That's the easiest vehicle imaginable for bad actors, opportunists, grifters to operate under. And I'll go one further. I'll go one further. One of the things that is the calling card of CIA. What could FBA have done to make someone think CIA? One of the calling cards of CIA, of COINTELPRO, of agent operations is confusion. Things that stir up trouble and animosity and antagonistic beefs amongst people who, if otherwise were united, would represent a significant threat to the governmental schemes of empire and exploitation and capitalism. So that alone would suggest, well, what did FBA do that would make someone think CIA? Everything that come out your mouth. You divide the Black community in America. You separate the Black community from other global Black populations. That's what CIA does. Now, Pan-Africanism is practiced by people like Professor Smalls, runs through decades of institutional vetting, credentialed academic positions, elder councils, like the 75 organizations that came together to discuss what shall our name be, not one documentarian with a bad background of being a pimp who says we need to change the name. Pan-Africans have documented organizational lineages, the Organization of African American Unity, ASCAC, and I can't remember what ASCAC stands for. Decades of public record. FBA has none of that. They don't have a ladder. They don't have a chain of connections. They don't have a scaffolding. They don't got no well, they got one elder, Tariq Nasheed, no council, no credentials. There may be some coming in the future. There's no institutional memory. That's the actual distinction. It's not that open movements in general are risky. It's that this one specifically has zero guardrails. None whatsoever. Black Lives Matter was open-ended. Black Lives Matter was decentralized. They still got a lot of stuff done. Now, you could say, oh, well, we don't like them. We against Black Lives Matter because they were standing up for the gays. I don't care. They still got organized and they got their objectives done. That's here. They still got organized and they got their objectives done. Well, Obama signed legislation for them, and he didn't sign nothing for us. We didn't organize. We didn't demand. There was a constant conversation in the Black community. Should we push him harder? Should we let it ride? Should we push him harder? Should we stick it to him or let it ride? All 8 years. The LGBTQ plus community said, knock, knock. We here for our papers. Everybody pressed hard except for us. So it's not even his fault. I don't even like him that much. It's not his fault that he didn't sign something for us. It's our fault because we were too divided, just like we are now. So again, what could FBA have possibly done to make somebody think CIA? Your entire ideology sounds like, looks like, feels like CIA. Now I had another, but you can't say that because you can't prove that. You can't prove that they COINTELPRO when the government shut down COINTELPRO. Okay, I ain't got to prove it. I didn't say you are COINTELPRO. I say you operate like COINTELPRO. You operate like COINTELPRO. So, let me see. What's the next section? What was the next? So again, I mean, I don't necessarily need to play that. It's the same thing because later on, the brother and Tariq, they both say, people trying to claim to that generic African thing. That's an escape hatch from responsibility and power. Really though? So okay, let's follow the logic all the way through. You follow the logic all the way through, and it means, so if you're a Pan-Africanist, or if you consider yourself an African, like I do, African in America, or African American, you're trying to cling to. You're trying to cling to this African thing. And that means that you are trying to use an escape hatch from responsibility and power. So what that means is, if you've been fighting for African Americans without the term foundational Black American, you trying to use an escape hatch. That means every generation of Black Americans, that means every generation of African Americans across 3 centuries who called themselves African, even the ones who grew up calling themselves colored, even the ones who grew up calling themselves Negro, even the ones who grew up calling themselves Black, apparently they were not fighting. According to this framework, holding on to Africanity is an escape hatch to escape power and responsibility. What about all those African Americans clearly in our entire storied history that fought for everything that we got? Again, none of this is scholastic. None of this is scholarly. When Marimba Ani coined the term Yorugu, when Dr. Francis Cress Welsing coined the term, or no, developed the theory, the cross theory, the Cress theory. These were conceptual frameworks. These were rigorous, stress-tested, peer-reviewed, detailed analytical breakdowns before they hit the public airwaves. None of that groundwork has been done, is being done here. They make it up as they go. They make it up as they go. Improvisation, like coming off the top of the dome when you rapping. Now I'm gonna get to this next clip. I'm gonna get to this next clip. Play this. Where is it? Okay, it's coming along, family. So here we go. So here we go. Let's add it back to the stage.
In power. You see, when you acknowledge that you are the foundation of this country, and that you are foundational Black American, and that you owe homage and respect to your lineage, now you got responsibilities. You got to step up and protect your lineage. You got to start setting standards. You got to get out here and put in some work, which is what a lot of our young folks are doing out here with lineage-based advocacies out here.
All right, now, and you can see the brother Watergod. Yes, sir. Just like a cult member. Just yes and everything. But this is what I want to say. Again, every serious generation of African Americans has already acknowledged that we built this country. We've been saying that for as long as we've been here. Every generation has stepped up to the plate to fight for a certain set of standards, rules, laws, rights, privileges, whatever it was that was on the table at that particular time. We fought for our freedom. We fought for our rights. We fought for our civil rights. We fought for the legislation. Every generation. They didn't need foundational Black American as a term, as a label, as an idea or a concept in order to do that work. He's not expressing anything that is deep mental thought. There's no insight in that statement. There's nothing that requires a new label. If this framework can't survive basic academic scrutiny, that should be a signal to revise the claim or just throw it in the trash. But repeating it louder and louder and louder and more often and repeated, that don't make it true, family. And he says they're doing the work. They're doing the lineage work. What is it? What is the lineage work that FBA advocates are doing? Because I already talked about, shown. Now, there was one brother that said FBA is getting the reparations done. You can say it. I'd like for you to show and prove it. Give me the names. Who are the FBA people on the reparations committee in Atlanta, California, Illinois, New York? Like I said, if putting in the work is the standard, cool, great. I honor that. I respect that. Now show the receipts. Name the work. Because not fighting for policy change, and like one of the FBAs in the chat room said earlier, FBA is sitting on the couch. That's not work. You a couch potato. Not fighting for policy change, not going out to register voters, not mobilizing a mutual aid society, not feeding or clothing anyone hungry, homeless, the way the Black Panthers did. That's the freedom fighting. Not doing anything. Now, again, everybody picks a lane. That's fine. If you feel like feeding the homeless is what you are called to do, then do that. If you feel like registering voters is what you're called to do, then do that. But that's doing something. What is the FBA's lane? What is the work that they're putting? Showing up online, showing up at Kamala Harris's book signing and talking about, you better give us reparations. She ain't even in office. She ain't even running for office. That ain't work. There's no work in that. That's distraction. That's that confusion that CIA operatives do, that the brother says, well, what could FBA be doing that would make someone think CIA? Showing up at a book signing asking for political policy. But I'm going to move on. Let me move on to this next clip. Let me move on to the next clip. I think I'm already there. Where is it? Okay, so here we go. In the annals of ignorant statements, here comes a doozy.
Right? We don't know a Pan-Africanism doing anything. You know, we don't know them doing anything. We don't know nothing that a Pan-Africanism has did that had any significance.
I love this cult-like mantra. We don't. It has done. I don't know what kind of rock you've been under. I don't know. The glorification of ignorance. The glorification of ignorance. That's what this represents. This is an openly, almost proud admitting ignorance, dressed up as an argument. I've given so many examples on this channel. There are African Americans partnering with Ghanaians. That's Pan-Africanism. To open businesses. There are African Americans partnering with Jamaicans. That's Pan-Africanism. Opening up businesses. Earning their keep. Securing the bag. There are Jamaicans working with Canadians. That's Pan-Africanism. There is an ongoing cross-diaspora work pipeline and ecosystem being built right now. If you don't know it, it's because you don't want to know it. It's being built continuously. It's not being performed on YouTube. They don't need YouTube to invest in a bank and keep the doors open. They don't need YouTube to open up a credit union between Caribbeans, African Americans, and continental Africans. But they did it. They just do the work. So if your understanding of Pan-Africanism starts and stops with what Tariq Nasheed told you, with what Watergod told you, with what O'Shea Duke Jackson told you, you're just spoon-feeding your own self filth. How about that for food for thought? Pig slop. Now, and that's just like economically. Now, I know FBA don't care about this, but another thing that they say is, ain't no Africans on the continent practicing Pan-Africanism. They just want us to do it. Again, that would be admitted ignorance. You don't know what is Pan-Africanism. You don't know how it works. You don't even know where to look for it. Because I could say, well, look at the Sahelian states. That's proof. Various 3 African nations who've never been in alignment finally decided, look, guess what? We got the same enemy. He's playing the same tricks on all of us. We need to reconfigure. That's what Pan-Africanism is. Coming together in whatever ways you can, especially when you recognize you got the same enemy running the same flim-flam scam game on you. That's a full government infrastructure program of Pan-Africanism. They're working together to maintain their sovereignty. They're working together to maintain their resource control and improve the infrastructure in their countries. So that's Pan-Africanism. That's some examples of Pan-Africanism on the continent. Well, you can't show and prove that it's 100% everywhere. No, I can't. I can't. There's no ideology that requires 100% perfect, absolute alignment and manifestation for it to be considered valuable, worthy, or doing something. You have to step out of that ignorant mindset. And again, on this channel, I've already shown how African Americans are opening up businesses. There's an African American brother, I believe, in Texas that's got a whole business plan, has a whole, clothing company that works with the Nigerian government and the Olympics. So he's securing the bag by creating a Pan-African pipeline. He uses African-American farmers and Nigerian some other materials to create the clothing and provide it at a cost. So there's always social activity, political activity, and commerce activity. There are ongoing agreements between numerous HBCUs. I know FBA don't like those. They got partnerships. They got cultural exchange programs. There are cities that have sister city agreements and arrangements in America, in Jamaica, and on the continent. Ain't none of them worried about, I wonder if the FBA know what we doing. You either do the research, look it up, and gain some knowledge, or you sit in your cave. We don't know nothing that Pan-Africanism is doing. Okay. Ignorance is bliss, is what they say. Peace to Dennis. I saw. Peace to Dr. Dennis. I saw Winkler in the room. Thank you, brother. Thank you, cuz. Let me see. What is it? What does it say? Pan Mulatto started with you and is making his way around all the way to the UK with Shaka Ra today with a new name, though. Hoodoo. Oh, man, he need to leave Hoodoo alone. Hoodoo be done turned him into something. Oh, I done missed a lot. Let me see what's going on in the chat before I keep going. So peace to Dr. Dennis Osar Winkler. Thank you for showing up. What it is, cuz. Let's see. King Divine says, be easy, that dude. You remember when the Africans used to say they are lost Africans? This is exactly who they talking about. They need to reconnect with their tribe. Or shut up and think and thank Black Americans. Nah, no, we don't. Mr. K says, King Divine, read the books of African history by career intellectual historians and scholars. I can give you a list of books to read. Now, I'm going to rubber stamp cosign that because Miss K will have you bogged down in the library, and you need it. Lords of Slaughter says, couch potato. I imagine that's a shot at the FBA. Let's see what's going on. Let me see. Miss Gay says, Dr. This or something that you got to give it to these FBA trolls. They are relentless with their trolling. That's why I think some of them are bots. Let's see. Pan Mulatto is crazy. Just the name alone is insane. There's nothing in history. So let's see what King Vine is saying. There's nothing in history foundational Black Americans was a part of when you talk about cars, airplanes, satellite phones, medicine, machinery, ice cream, spaceships, stream, train, 100 plus more. Okay, you missed some words. You missed some words. So that doesn't even make any sense. Okay, so anyhow. So let's continue. Let me get to this whole thing. Because again, what I'm talking about is this vast lack of knowledge, this vast lack of information and awareness. So if I go to the next section of this video and we see what he has to say. Well, now he's going to take some shots at Africa. So here we go. Let's bring this on up here. So here's what he got to say. Let's hit that play button.
He may have made a mistake. Africa is corrupted. A lot of Black people robbing Black people. I'm telling y'all experience with people that went over there, bro. FBAs that went over there is telling you that, bro, is real wicked.
So I'm gonna put a pause on that. Now let's get a couple of things situated. Let's get some things straight. Now, I ain't the type to sugarcoat a lot of stuff. I do think it's interesting. And I'm going to say this brother is willfully, and I stress willfully. He is woefully and willfully ignorant. I've said that before. Now, the one thing conveniently left out, well, two things. One, he said FBAs have gone over there and they come back and tell you. First off, that's a lie. FBAs ain't went nowhere. There is no FBAs going to Africa. FBAs ain't staying in Africa. There are some African Americans that have gone there. There are some African Americans that have gone to Africa and not appreciated their experiences. That's not even a gotcha. That's not a drop the bomb. That's not, oh, I told you. Hell, we don't even like it here. We don't appreciate here. But the one thing that is conveniently left out is, now I don't know if I should say some, I don't know if I should say many, because I can't qualify it with data, but I've seen and heard a lot, family. Many of the people running scams on African Americans who returned to the continent. He brought up Ghana. Many of those people are African Americans. There's a lot of African Americans. They've been sued by other African Americans. There are cases in Senegal. There are cases in Ghana in particular, and dare I say a couple of others, but my memory is a little faulty on that. But I've seen some of the cases. African Americans suing other African Americans for grift, for lies, for falsehood, for being robbed of their money. So what I'm saying is, unless you are a white supremacist, it's very difficult to stand on factual information and push this idea that Africa is dangerous. Africans don't like us. And later on, he goes on to name, he's going to give us a list of the Africans or the Pan-Africanists that he says are grifting. And guess how many people he got on his list? One. Dr. Umar. So again, what did I say? I said woefully, willfully ignorant. If what is Pan-Africanism starts with Dr. Umar and stops with Dr. Umar, you are woefully, willfully ignorant. And quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, that's not even taking a shot at Dr. Umar. Although I could. But the only person he can actually name as a grifter, even indirectly, is Dr. Umar Johnson. So again, if that's your entire picture of Pan-Africanism, that means you have no conceptualization of the brothers and sisters who are Pan-Africanists and open up coffee companies, the brothers and sisters who are Pan-African and open up clothing companies, the brothers and sisters who are Pan-African and open up traveling companies, all of this, all of these different businesses, and all you can say is, well, Dr. Umar. Again, that is a critique of a straw man that you yourself built. That's not scholars. That's not scholarship, scholasticism. Right. Dr. Dennis song is they go from Umar to Garvey. That's their only two. And even with those, again, especially with Garvey, they mimic everything that the white Uncle Sam government said about Garvey. But then you know what they like to forget? They don't want to talk about the fact that Garvey was exonerated. They don't want to talk about the fact that the government, the same way the government said, y'all know something, if you take us to court, we'll admit it. We killed MLK. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about the fact that the government said, you know, some of y'all caught us. We screwed that man royally. We was only trying to do it because he was trying to unite black people. They don't want to talk about that. Uncle Sam said he went to jail. And they be the first ones jumping online talking about some free Pookie or some mess. Lord of Slaughter says the FBA think we're a group. Pan-Africanism is a society. Pan-Africanism is an ideology. Pan-Africanism is an aspirational goal and objective. Appreciate that, cuz appreciate that. Mr. K says they forget that even some of Garvey's enemies said that Garvey was right. Exactly. They live in this environment of microwave mentality, gotchaism. As long as they can get a clean soundbite, they think they've won. That's not thought process. That's not critical thinking. That's not in-depth analysis. But I'm going to play something else that's very interesting that the brother says. Let me get to this next section. We get to this next section. Where is that at? 21. All right, so check this out. Listen to what he says. Let me.
$1 million in unclaimed money.
Like what? Wait, you don't know about unclaimed?
Okay, so check it.
What traitors? I mean, the only traitors I could see is people that is going to they're going to try to force us back into a African society, or try to pin us back to Africa to say, you weren't on this land. You know, I slowed down on.
So there we go. This is it in a nutshell. This is it in a nutshell. What do I mean? What am I talking about? He says the only way he can conceive of somebody being called a traitor is if they are a person that says you have heritage that connects to Africa. If a person says your bloodline actually comes from Africa, if a person says, you know, there are different things about African Americans that we do, that we like, because they are similar to, or they are almost exactly the same as what we were doing in Africa, you're a traitor. So, okay, so check this out. Because by that logic, and I hate to use the term logic because it's not logic, I got a list of so-called traitors by his definition. And I think it exposes the absurdity of his mentality. The Black Panther Party explicitly said they were an internationalist and Pan-African ideologically. They had an international section in their movement. They had chapters across the globe. Some of them went to Algeria under Eldridge Cleaver. The Algerian government recognized them as, they actually recognized them not as a group, not as a club, not as a cult. They said, you guys are a government in exile. That was a full-scale diplomatic mission. So the Black Panthers are traitors because they connected back to Africa. Carter G. Woodson said, you can't understand nothing about African-American history unless you start in Africa. So Carter G. Woodson becomes a traitor. He founded the Association of Association of the Study of Negro Life and History. He built the Journal of Negro History. Everything that Carter G. Woodson produced said, start in Africa. Before you get to the study of yourself in America, study yourself in Africa. So that makes Carter G. Woodson a traitor, according to Watergod. W.E.B. Du Bois, co-founder of the NAACP. Now, I know a lot of brothers in the Pan-African community be like, we don't really F with W.E.B. Du Bois. But just hear me out. Du Bois renounced his U.S. citizenship. Yes, he did it late in life, but he still did it. And he took himself to Ghana at the invitation of Kwame and Nkrumah. He became a Ghanaian citizen and said, as far as I'm concerned, this is where we're supposed to be. Now, I ain't saying he said that verbatim. That's my interpretation. Don't conflate the two. I hate when people conflate, and I'm not saying those words came out of Du Bois' mouth. But he lived whatever amount of time he had left. He lived it where he thought he could live best. And that was in Ghana. He connected back to Africa. So that would mean he's a traitor. Malcolm X, that's right, El Hajj, Malik El Shabazz. After his 1964 pilgrimage, and what is it? Brother Mr. K already said he took the name Omawale. But after his pilgrimage to Mecca, he went to Africa. He founded the Organization of Afro-American Unity. He explicitly detailed that this organization is based upon Pan-African principles. Now, if that ain't connecting back to Africa, he traveled extensively across Africa. He met with heads of state, including Kwame Nkrumah, including I'm gonna get his name wrong. Gamal Abdel Nasir, I think. If I messed that name up, then excuse me. So all of these brothers are traitors, according to Watergod, the FBA, or I should say Prince, because Tariq is the king. Kwame Ture, he moved permanently from America to Guinea in 1969. He literally renamed himself. He had one of them good English names, one of them good slave names. And he said, not no more. I'm going to reconnect to Africa. And honored his mentors and his peers, or whatever else you might want to call it. Kwame Nkrumah and Sekou Toure. Now, he remained a committed Pan-Africanist until his death in 1998. Watergod says that's a traitor. Anybody that connects us back to Africa is a traitor. That's why I don't like FBA. Not only is it a sweeping, hasty generalization, not only is it lazy thinking, look where that leads you. You don't want nothing to do with Africa. You are denying who you are. Maya Angelou lived in Ghana. Muhammad Ali took his whole money-making machine to Zaire to explicitly embrace the continent as a homecoming. And he returned repeatedly to the continent throughout his life. So again, what I'm saying to you is, this is the moment of the Freudian slip. Now, I'm not the psychiatrist, so I can't definitively affirm that that's what the Freudian slip means. I remember studying a little bit about it, but it's when you make a mistake and reveal your true self or something like that. So he says the only traitors that he can define are people who want to connect back to, people who want to connect us African Americans back to an African society, back to the continent. See, that's revealing. It suggests that part of this framework of the F, the B, and the A is built on discomfort. Perhaps with the transatlantic origin story itself, or even more so, perhaps with the continent. But see, here's the thing. Documented facts, history makes the position untenable. Like I said, that's just you know how short that list is that I just ran down? You know how exceedingly short that list is? But by his own standard, they are all traitors. So again, I'm like, this is the truth of FBA. They are doing what white supremacists want. They want to minimize us, isolate us, delineate from everything black so we can sit up under massa. Exactly. Dr. Dennis Alwyn says, that's it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think I might be almost finished. I probably could go on, but I may leave the rest. Let's see, I've been up here for 2.5 hours, so I may leave the rest for another day. I got way more than I thought I had. And I know I ain't gonna be able to do that because I already got a couple of phone calls too. Let me see. Here's what I might do. Let me see. I ain't saying anybody got to feel obligated, but if anybody wanted to come in and make a comment, I did just drop the link. And that's my bad technically, because I told myself that I would put the link in the chat at the very beginning of this thing. And you know, I got a bad memory, family. So, but anyhow, if anybody do want to come in, I dropped the link in the chat. I'll let you come in, say your statement, make your piece or whatever, and then I'm gonna get ready to get up out of here. I will use the rest at a later date. You can trust and believe that. Let's see. Lord of Slaughter says FBA only aspires to be American, like European Americans. Exactly. Mr. K says, Brother Shabazz, here's the joke. Dana in that same video said about the prospects of Black Americans going to Africa and doing business with other Africans. Again, that's the thing. This is why I'm saying FBA is entirely driven by self-hate and white masterism, white supremacy. They was cool with Dana till she said, Tariq is about the money. Tariq is a grifter. Now you no longer FBA. But he called Tariq a freedom fighter because Tariq makes money. I just can't. I can't. But like I said, Mr. K, I am gonna play. I'm gonna review. I'm gonna finish this Watergod video at a later date, and I'm going to do a fuller breakdown of Dana's video. I swear, I pledge allegiance to the Pan-African honorism. I'm gonna do that. I didn't realize that it was gonna take me as long as it took me to get this far in my presentation, and I have people. I'm getting some phone calls and some text messages, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to do some things. Black American Homeland says, from 1994 to 1996, I lived, worked, and traveled to several African countries. However, firsthand observations of complex regional dynamics led me to reevaluate my perspective and return to the USA. Okay, that's fine. Everything is not for everybody, and I say that because how much time was that from 1994 to 1996? So that's 2 years. You know how many countless videos there are of people who said almost the same thing, but their final conclusion was, I decided to stay in Africa. Like there's thousands upon thousands of people, of African Americans, not just Africans in the West, but specifically African Americans. There are thousands of African Americans that moved to Ghana and said, I love it here, I'm staying. There are thousands of African Americans that moved to Kenya and Uganda. And there are African Americans, I met some that live in Egypt. Now, honestly, I'd be like, damn, you living in Egypt? I couldn't do that. But I met African Americans that are living in Egypt and they're like, this is the place for me. So, okay, it's cool for you to have this individual confessional, hey, I tried it and it wasn't for me. No beef, no smoke, no hate. But there are just as many that said, I moved there and I never came back. There are others. There are still other high numbers of people who moved there and said, I love it here, but I miss America and I got the wherewithal to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to live in both. There are African Americans that said, I got a house in America, I got a house in Ghana, and I go back and forth at my will, whatever that will might be. So again, I guess what I'm saying is, like I said, I'm not mad at you if you came back. Coming back is not a sign that you hate Africa or Africa hates you. Not necessarily. It's a sign that that's not a lifestyle, that something there is not what you wanted. That's cool. I would encourage people, if you really wanted to know, like the brother keeps saying, I just don't know nothing about Pan-Africanism. Well, pick up a book. Add to the stage. Ooh, peace. Let's see. I hear you. I don't see you.
Peace, cuz.
Peace.
How you doing? I mean, I'm not sure. I wasn't sure if I should jump in here or not, because it sounds like you got something to tend to. So
I do, but I got a couple minutes, so go ahead.
No, I mean, I just wanted to jump in there because I hardly have time to kind of do it. And I was like, the time that I will, it is like he really has to go. But, but nonetheless, I appreciate what I've seen. I think I've seen most of it.
Okay.
I think I've seen most of it, unless I came in later than I thought. But yeah, I think you really make some awesome points. Some of these things are things that I try to kind of conceptualize. But I struggled to kind of even get the thought complete. Like one of the thoughts was, I think you really put the period on the sentence that I was fumbling in my head, and I think that might has more to do with your proximity to some of this political, Democratic and Republican type of politics. As far as Garvey, what was the proper term when they kind of like
when they cleared him, exonerated?
Yeah, exonerated him. Yes. So yeah, I think that right there, is a dagger as it pertains to FBA because to me, I'm so like, I don't like this government is corrupt. But think about it. So if you give so much credit to this government, is what I'm hearing. All right. So the same government that you are bigging up and you're giving so much credit to has also exonerated him. You know what I mean? So I think that right there, I think that you deserve to drop yourself a bomb on that. And also the other things that I did get to fumble around in my head a lot more though, and really come with a clear period is, they go from Umar to Garvey. And they struggle even modern day without. And if they do it without any real evidence, I would say that the episode that you and I did the other day, getting a lot of good feedback on that. You know what I mean? Getting a lot of good feedback on this end. I'm not sure about what you're getting on your end, but definitely the people are giving good feedback, saying they really appreciate us breaking those things down. And before I go, I must be remiss. I've been also entering the conversation around all these different wars in our community. Whether that be ethnicity, whether that be nationality, or what they call diaspora wars. Also, male, female, the wars there. And the same gender loving community. Some people call LGBT community. And I've been really interested because as brother Mr. K calls me the Pan-African peacemaker, most people don't feel like I'm bringing peace. And the fact is because typically they haven't gotten to the conclusion to realize that, hold up, he really just saying, look at how we're keeping ourselves divided without really taking one side or the other to a great degree, unless it's really challenging our unity. And I must say, I'm not going to call it a bias, but I will argue and I maintain that anything without an African center or a similar type of framework or analysis or whatever you want to call it, I'm about tired of the word analysis at this point due to a lot of the materialist and dialectical. Look, I use those terms, but now it's starting to get frustrating just because people are just using words. Somebody told me it's a lousy analysis to throw all these different groups and lump them together. I'm not lumping them together. I'm saying they all have their divisive aspects of them due to them looking through their Eurocentric frameworks. I'm not saying the people struggle to see that I'm not beating up on FBA brothers and sisters. They my brothers and sisters. I'm not beating up on people, males or females or whatever, relationships, gender wars. I'm not beating up on the people. I am challenging the ideas and the frameworks they're looking through. So just in closing, I'll just say this. I don't know if you had a chance to see, but on Dr. Ball's show today. Now, Dr. Ball, I gotta be real honest. Brother Papa, I would love to see you do an analysis of Dr. Ball's comment in my section, in my comment section regarding to my video of the LGBT community. I don't know if you would do it. I'm just saying.
I might do that.
Or even interview me. I'm not sure if you saw it. He's saying so much, and I might be missing something. But maybe you'll get something, but literally, he's like challenging things I've never said. He and I talked about it. He's like, you're saying that basically that gender is, or sexuality is biological, completely biological, and or more social. I'm like, I never said any of that. But then he goes and says the science shows, the 30 years of science shows that it's absolutely biological, he says, or something like that. And gender is absolutely a social construct. That right there is a faulty analysis. Now, to be honest, now only if I give him the benefit of the doubt because I want to bring unity and I'm not triggered. The benefit of the doubt is if he means that there's absolutely biological aspects or there's some measurable aspects to that, he has to be, he challenged me with nuance, but reality is if you look at me talk, I don't talk in this. it's more. He said, I said, it's more this and more that. Now I don't even talk like that unless I have a journal article before me that I can substantiate that. I just don't talk like that. But nonetheless, all I want to do is bring people together. But that, and also maybe you'll have me on this platform one day. maybe I mean, like, come over here and you challenge me.
I mean, we there, so you know you here, so that's all cool.
Look, Brian,
I'm gonna check out that
I ain't
whole.
never make it to a guest on my cousin's platform yet, y'all. Look,
well, then you coming. Well, the very next time we gonna figure it out, because I'm like, I ain't even look at it like that, because I'm like, I'm still small fry.
Well, no, I know, but I don't want you to think like that.
I feel you.
No, I get it. But also, another thing we could do, if we do it here, then what I done with Dr. Ball is basically you share the link with me. I'm parting all this online, but you share the link and then we collaborate. So then all of it works out really much for you. So yeah.
All right, that's cool. Yeah, we'll definitely do it. We'll definitely do it.
So I appreciate it. I just wanted to come in here because I'm always typically I'm about to get on my own, or I decided not to jump in any type of conversations today due to allowing some things to settle and not responding to things, because there's several things I wanted to talk about, but I just want to let some things settle and then come back. But I appreciate your work. I always appreciate you, cuz I think I might be your number 2 fan outside of Mr. K.
Most definitely.
Hey, Mr. K, look, I don't know if I can compete with you. I don't know, Mr. K. We might be like this. We might be running neck to neck. But anyway, because
okay, peace.
Oh, peace.
Okay, thank you. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. You heard my cousin, Dr. Dennis Asar Winkler. Y'all can hit the like, share, subscribe buttons on my channel here. And you can go to Dr. Dennis Asar Winkler, his YouTube channel, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell for all on his channel as well. Like I said, I do this Tuesdays and Thursdays almost all the time, as much as I can keep myself and keep my ADHD brain waves focused. I be here on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen. Share and subscribe, and you will catch another episode of The Proper Perspective. We do have some things coming up. I will be finishing this Watergod video. I will be showing and discussing the Dana video. I may do a little bit of commentary on the senator who went away. But I got a couple of shorts, so y'all can check those out. Like I said, this is your brother Shabazz, sometimes Professor Shabazz, but I am so glad I'm retired. And this is The Proper Perspective. I'm going to get up out of here. Like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to catch you on the next one. Peace.
Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. The proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So